Hello and welcome to the Token Engineering Commons online event series. This is called the Localism Highlights. And so we're really excited to kick off this new chapter of the Token Engineering Commons where our focus is shifting toward the local and supporting and spotlighting builders who are bringing blockchain into their own communities. And so in this series, we'll be, sitting down with, on the ground innovators and to explore what it really takes to build locally with Web3 tools. We'll hear about some of their projects, the challenges they're facing, and most importantly, how you can get involved in creating, decentralized solutions right where you live. And so today we're going to have we have a great guest with us today, Wasabi, from the Coconut Network. And so this time I just want to kind of hand it over to you, Wasabi, just give you kind of an introduction, allow you to introduce yourself. How did you get into the space is one of my biggest, one of the questions that I like to ask everybody I ever interview, because I do think everybody has a unique journey to how they got to this place in the first place. And tell us kind of the projects that you're associated with and what you're working on right now.
I agree. Everyone has like a unique way of how they end up in Web3. You know, I've been, Wasabi, I'm based in the Dominican Republic. Like, it's funny how I end up in Web3 because I was a crypto user because I believe there is a difference between a crypto user and a Web3 like community member because it's totally different because I knew about the technology but I didn't know about the culture about uh, everything that goes on behind the scenes to make all of this happen. So I wasn't aware of that until um, I started to work in Coconut and I started to research like DAOs, DAO tooling, some token launching platforms, and so on. That's how I end up in the Web3 community side of blockchain. So yeah, like I'm one of the co-founder of Kokonut Network, and in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is to solve a systematic problem, and this problem is lack of funding for real-world projects, mainly for underserved communities because those communities they often don't have the means or the qualities that is required to meet the criteria of legacy organizations, government agencies. So they are left behind, and they have to basically do everything via middlemen. They simple capture of all of the value from there from them. So yeah, that's in a nutshell what we're trying to do is to create a better system that is focused on these communities, and if it is good enough for underserved communities, then it's a great baseline to build on top of for other use cases or needs. So yeah.
Yeah, and kind of at the core of, the Coconut Network is this kind of idea of this regenerative agriculture. And I was wondering if you could kind of explain, you know, in simple terms, like what is regenerative agriculture and why you think it's a very important thing to highlight within these communities.
You know, there are many definitions, but from my point of view, is how you use resources and how those resources create more resources and value over time. Because when you remove like chemicals and you, let's say, synchronize your methodology with the phases of the moon, stuff like the weather and nature itself, you are able to create a more value than what you're taking of the nature, of the natural resources, even the water cycle. When you when you are implementing regenerating agriculture, like for me, like in my opinion, is all about water. It's all about the water cycles and the fact that you are not poisoning the water because you are not applying chemicals to the trees and so on. So yeah.
Yeah, and so when it comes to the kind of the Coconut network and the Coconut DAO, what are the kind of the fundamental problems that you're trying to solve with these networks and kind of the systematic issues that are being faced by the communities?
Yeah, let's say let's focus on three pillars: data fidelity, liquidity, and distribution. Those are, let's say, if I have to say, top three problems that we solve. Uh, I will say though those are like the top three, because when it comes to data fidelity, that's a major blocker because basically money is driven by data. So if you don't have high fidelity data, you are not able to attract money, attract any kind of capital, not only money, but any kind of capital is not able to come to your project because you don't have a good enough data, you don't have data that you can trust. So that's one of the problems being solved uh, here is the data fidelity problem, because data is a new oil. And the second problem is the liquidity. Like, we are focusing on underserved communities that are in high poverty areas, but that they have the means to create value at the same level that, I don't know, a developed country, or even better, because we have, you know, perfect uh, geolocation. We can grow stuff all year around, let's say in the case of the Dominican Republic. But the idea is that you want to match that high fidelity data with new source of liquidity. That's where the DAO comes in. Because we are not trying to, let's say, replace the system, the traditional system. We try to create a system that is in parallel but is community centric. Like liquidity, if the liquidity comes from the community, that means that the community gets to decide uh, many important stuff down the line, but also is able to capture the value. And if that community is values aligned and understand the flywheel that you are building, then you create a win-win scenario where it's real power back to the people. It's not like, it's not that's the idea. When it comes to distribution, um, in a supply chain, just one step further the ladder, you do 10, 20x value than the previous step. So the idea of the DAO is that by having the proper governance mechanism and having like a system that optimize for the people but also protect minorities, we are able to achieve the global distribution, because we can have down members saying, let's say, just to say something like a coconut in some states in America, they go even for $3, $4, $5. Like, if you are a down member and you want to have like you want to be like a local wholesale distributor of coconuts products or raw coconuts itself, and you are a member of this DAO that has this network that is able to produce coconut in mass for cents on the dollar, you are able to create a win-win scenario for the DAO, and the supply, the distribution stays within the community. And those are, let's say, options that can be enabled down the line. And those are the possibilities of having, a DAO. Besides liquidity, it can serve as a distribution, a global distribution network.
Yeah, and so in terms of the actual kind of end user for this, we're talking largely about the farms, and in this particular case, those coconut production. Um, in terms of just accessing external capital, has this been something that you've seen work really well in terms of getting getting production off the ground or helping them access new forms of capital that they wouldn't have been able to prior to this? prior to using on-chain mechanisms and money.
For which user persona? We
For the farmers, I suppose. Yeah, the being able to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Coconut is not like blockchain. You can say is some of the components of the framework. And that's why I'm very proud of saying that we are building a framework in a way that is modular, that basically you can pick and choose which are the pieces that you need the most, and you can even choose to implement some stuff later. Like, you don't need to tokenize a tree from the get-go, or you don't need to have like a DAO in place. Probably what you lack is the knowledge to do the development phases in the right way. Probably what you lack is the knowledge of generating the high fidelity data that then you can build a business around it, or you can build like a financial forecast because now you have data that you can trust. So in our case, right now we have 6 farms. We have 3 farms like that are active, and we have 3 in the, you can say, in the design phase. But for every let's say landowner so far, it has been like a diverse of cases. Like, we have meet landowners that they lack of the knowledge, they lack of the financial resources, they lack of the whole uh, support to do it, and doing it in an organic way. But also we have met landowners that they they are, let's say, on a different uh, lifestyle, and let's say that they have the money, they have the land, they have lost a lot of money trying to do it, but what they lack is the knowledge. The lack of the expertise to do a syntropic farm in the right way. So the idea is that every community, every scenario is going to be different. So far everything has been positive, because we are able to use the framework in the way that is going to solve the problems of that landowner, of that farmer, but also it's going to create upside for the local community, but also global communities. So yeah, so far it's been great. And we you know we are, let's say, a project that is in the research and development phase, and we are building on the fly based on all of the variables and based on the realities that we discover as we build new farms. And that means that every new farm is better than the last one, and we are able to implement new components of the framework based on the needs of these farms. So far, all of the farms has been funded by grants, so probably we haven't been able to implement some components, because with grant funding, we optimize for impact. So yeah, even the source of funding influence the governance mechanism, or what the farm itself is optimizing for.
Yeah, and I really did enjoy kind of going through the coconut framework that you guys have devised, and I really find it very valuable in terms of for somebody who maybe has a farm, maybe is just producing locally and not reaching kind of scale that they want. That they have the ability to kind of look at this in a way where they can say, okay, here are the forms of capital formation that we can create on chain and through this kind of DAO, and from people who have a financial interest in investing in that type of activity. And I think coconuts are a really interesting product in this space, in the sense that we're having a lot more products that contain coconuts, and that's it's a very limited supply, high demand, and that you have this ability for landowners who have maybe no use of their land at the moment, having this opportunity to actually put some of this framework into place and to access capital that they would not necessarily have access to on a local level, but to reach out globally to see if there can be a possibility for gaining the capital in order to start up their business, to start up the production, of more of this. And so I really find that the framework is very extremely valuable, not only for our agriculture, but for almost everything that we do. Having a good framework model, and so I kind of wanted you to see if you wanted to kind of touch a little bit more on the details of that framework, from capital formation, the SDGs alignment, and some of kind of the principles that are embedded within it for regeneration. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that at all, but I did find that very, very cool.
Yeah, yeah, of course. What I'm very excited about is how you can use it. When you go through the different phases of the framework and you start to fill out the data, the variables. The, let's say that you have a local community where you have a high unemployment rate. Um, so you want to, let's say that you want to focus on employing as many people as possible, but also you want to make it like sustainable. Like, you don't want to make bad decisions because you want to prioritize over employment. So even the crop selection, you can like, even that kind of decisions, even that kind of problems, let's say, or no problems, even that kind of outcomes that you want to like achieve, you can use different crop selection setups for a farm where you say like, okay, I'm going to plant whatever has the highest amount of byproducts, so I can have people working the land, but also I can have people working in post production. And like, the idea is that syntropic farming allows you to play even like that kind of games in a way, so you can solve problems. So the components of the framework, they are like um, based on principles, and these principles are like the principle of regeneration. Everything starts with the soil and the composition. And that's the first step that we do is data collection and analysis, because based on the composition of the soil, number one, what you need to produce fertilizers wise, and what kind of minerals you need to bring back to the soil so you can balance everything up. So the framework, it guides you through that process of understanding the kind of soil that you're dealing with, the weather, um, and the location. Those three uh, variables are how you do crop selection. That's how you decide on what kind of infrastructure you need in the farm. That's how you decide what kind of uh, knowledge for the training you need to implement for the people working in the land. And everything from there is just you go with the flow. The framework also is focused on impact. So everything that you do, every uh, problem that you set to solve in the design phase, you are able to track that data down the line towards the outcome that you set. Like, so let's say that you say that, I don't know, whatever milestones that you set out to solve, like problems, you are able to use the framework to generate the data and make sure that the data is high fidelity, because it goes through several layers of from input to output to verification, and so on. So yeah, TLDR, when it comes to the SDGs and the 8 forms of capital, a syntropic farm is the best way to balance both, because you can balance natural capital with uh, you can balance natural capital with zero hunger, with living capital, with like basically all of the SDGs can be uh, fostered and can be produced in a syntropic farm, because you can nurture intellectual capital because you train people. You can generate material capital because you are creating new infra that is sustainable by design. I'm so on.
Yeah, and I think that, one of the hardest things about, the refi movement and regeneration in general is that, the world is traditionally we measure things in things that are largely measurable, and it's very hard to measure the outcomes that we want to create when it comes to regenerative practices that are a little bit more abstract or a little bit away from, you know, uh, common metrics that we're used to, acknowledging. And so I think this is it's really fascinating to see some of the challenges that um, um, some of the projects go through when they're focused on regenerative, whether it's regenerative finance, regenerative agriculture. Um, how hard it is to track these types of metrics and have that type of data available to show others that you're having a direct impact on the outcomes that you're wanting to influence. And so I guess one of the big questions I have when it comes to the agricultural component is, you spoke before about a little bit about the data fidelity and the data that you're getting. What are the biggest challenges when it comes to accessing that data? Is it something about like the input sources and tracking soil viability and things of that nature? Is it, what are the biggest challenges with acquiring that data in the first place?
Well, that depends. That depends on what is like the use that you, uh, how you are going to implement that data. Because, for example, just to give you two scenarios. Let's say that you are doing data capture because you wanna, I don't know, apply for carbon credits or generate carbon credits or generate any kind of cert, certificate, then yeah, you need to have like the most high fidelity data possible. Because, but if you are collecting data when it comes to, let's say, improving your own methodologies and your own operations, that depends on the expertise and also the level of of fidelity of the data that you want to collect. Like in our case. I would say that the biggest problem is human. Like training people to do stuff in a in a specific way. I feel like that's the biggest challenge. But that's I use so far. Like right now, we have a data schema for the ground operations of 3, 6, like 15 data tables we use to collect data of everything happens in the ground. So yeah, in our case, we are collecting data for the purpose of becoming more efficient, but we also have the advantage that my co-founder, he's a geospatial data specialist, and we have advisors within that field, and we even have down members within that field. So we have experts in remote sensing, and we have experts also in data collection in the ground. So yeah, we are, you can say, we have the ability to have access to this data in whatever degree we need it, but we are also implementing the process to do it, to make it happen in the more seamless way as possible. Right now, the data is fed by the team, but like next stage is data coming from APIs, public APIs, and then data coming from sensors, and then the final stage of the Kokonut data is going to be open data, like similar to how developers use blockchain data to build apps and so on out there.
Yeah, and I imagine that it is really difficult when it comes to agricultural data as well, because um, you're looking at kind of different time horizons than what we normally would call, like live or dynamic data that would be coming from, you know, something, online or something that's digitally native, where, you have, maturation of soil and degradation of soil, or what, these types of inputs. These are on time horizons that are, years at times. And so it can be very difficult to kind of see the outcomes of that data in terms of, you know, turning that into kind of valuable data for on-chain capital, you know, allocations and things of that nature to prove that impact that you're wanting to have. And so I see that as being a pretty big challenging, but uh, yeah, it's interesting to see how some of these approaches are going to be working in the future, and I'm really excited to see the developments of that, especially when it comes to the sensors and getting that data from, you know, directly on ground and then bringing that on chain. And so I think that's really fascinating. And you know, with that being said, I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about the you know, the Coconut network platform. Um, so right now, I believe you have what, three active farms, three on the way, and you have a platform that has things called like the tree of links. You know, you have staff, tasks, and projects standard to like a kind of a typical DAO. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, exactly how that works, what it does, and the purpose of it?
Yeah, that's going to be the Coconut Data Hub. That's like a visualizer of everything happening in the ground. Like all of the data that we collect daily on the farms is reflect in this hub, and this hub is able to track everything from harvest forecast to what we have planted, what we have planned to plant, the daily activities and outputs, the activity metrics. Basically, it's a basic visualizer of what's going on. Also, when it comes to the expenses of the farms, like everything is being tracked there. It's a way for us to provide, let's say, data to the community, but also this data hub is API ready, so we can, let's say, feed data into Carbon Copy. For example, Carbon Copy has a dashboard. We can feed data into their dashboard and any other like source of data that we want to. And this is like the pre-phase before we transition to Postgres, because let's say these 15 data tables that we have right now, we are collecting like almost 200 data points from the operations in the ground. So yeah, right. Basically, this is the pre-phase to us to transition to a Coconut app that is going to start by catering the needs of the farmers in the ground, like let's say the daily operations of the trees, data capture, activity, and we are going to build from there. But yeah, that's what we have right now. For the operations in the ground, is that we are focusing on capturing as much data as possible, for the data to go through different layers, and that's what we display in the Coconut Data Hub. But yeah, right now it's in the stage one. The data is being fed by the team, but the next stage is that the Data Hub is going to be pulling data from public APIs, like for the weather, for the vegetation index, and for to enable remote sensing. Like stage two is for the Data Hub for have remote sensing based on public APIs.
So this would be largely from like third parties and others who are interested in gathering that information or have kind of this broad information about that particular piece of land, or is that correct?
Sorry, sorry.
So this stage would be largely like pulling data from third parties who have external data from of that piece of land in particular.
Y- No, no, it's public data because, for example, weather, the satellite image for the vegetation, all of this is public information. Like anyone can have access to and that the vegetation index is a great way of measuring regeneration of a specific location, a specific piece of land. So yeah, the next stage is basically pull data from public sources, data that anyone else can also verify that is happening in that way because it's public information. And then the stage number three is for us to finalize the infrastructure in the ground when it comes to the sensors and, let's say, Internet of IoTs, so we can collect water usage and automatically, like, and all of the variables that happens with the resource management in the ground. That's like stage three of the data approach that we are building.
Nice, yeah, and so the data hub is just trying to aggregate all of this information that you may have on this particular farm or property that you can utilize to actually access more external capital at the end of the day, and to inform kind of the impact that you're having for things like yes, the kind of SDGs and the certificates that you might want to do, whether it be carbon credits or anything like that. Um, and so what is the like kind of the final evolution of the Coconut Data Hub? Do you envision people kind of building on top of that and utilizing that data in some way?
Yeah, because the long-term vision is to evolve the data into a really, like, say, open data hub that you can, you know, uh, you can look at us as a sandbox, and we are trying stuff, we are improving every quarter, and we are making every the processes more efficient. So people can leverage this data in several ways, in whatever other way they see fit. And how we are going to explain the impact of this data, even how we are going to bring eyeballs to it, is using the EBF framework. Is the ecological benefits framework. Is one of my favorite frameworks out there when it comes to natural capital, but also uh, community and all other kind of resources. Is explained on a plain language. So the data that we're collecting today, we are going to be able to explain it in whatever impact framework we need to do, like namely EBF, or a carbon-based framework. Like, that's the next integration that we are going to have, because going back to the fact that data is the new oil, that's the main focus of making the data be so good that even the process of developing the farm is able to bring value to the operators, to the farmers. So they don't, like, the data becomes another revenue stream behind besides the harvest. That's the end goals when it comes to the data hub. And we are selecting the right and building the right schema of the data and the right processes to make sure that fidelity is part of the equation, but also to make it like compatible with you know with um, global standards.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's also pretty difficult to do. From what I understand about the kind of the agricultural space, that those standards seem to change quite frequently or evolve uh, as time goes on. But yeah, and so I this is really fascinating because if we look at the Coconut platform, it's starting kind of with this Coconut Data Hub, this kind of API ready platform, and which is really awesome. And then you have this thing called the Kokonut app. Is that correct? And that is kind of the final kind of iteration of what the Coconut Data Hub provides. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, and it's
Okay.
going to be enable manipulation of the data for some actors, and some other actors are going to have only read access. Like, but yeah, that's how it's going to be evolving. Like, next step is to build the app for farmers first, and then we are going to be enable different use cases for other stakeholders of the ecosystem.
Nice. Yeah. And in terms of the Coconut app, is this like who are the end users of this app? Is this largely the farmers? Is this the folks who are interested in the data? Is this, for the Coconut DAO community? Is it for all of them? Yeah, how do you envision this app, being utilized by different users?
Yeah, we're gonna start, simple, like focus on the farmers for the in the ground operations. And then the next use case is going to be for the coconut community, so it can be like a visualizer of, okay, let me see what's going on in Coconut Delphi, let me see what's going on in Coconut 6. And since every farm is being designed to serve like an specific purpose for the network, that also is going to influence the kind of um, models or information that is being displayed in the app, because not every farm, not all of the farms are equal. Like they are serving different, they are solving different problems for us, and they are serving different use cases. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that, like one of the things that I've been most interested in, especially as we start to kind of focus on this localism aspect and bringing blockchains into our local communities and seeing how they work from a coordination perspective and from, a perspective of just getting, capital access and so on, is, what it's like to participate in that as, a typical farmer, or, what has the reception been like by the participants using this so far, or experimenting with the Coconut DAO and the Coconut Network so far?
I can cite two scenarios. Like the first one was a local town hall meeting with the stakeholders and every other local government official in there. What I explained to them is that DAOs are like co-op, but the treasury is public. The decisions are public. How the treasury is spent, and you have public audits by design. So that's what I explained to them when it comes to the benefits of having a DAO approach to local community problems. I mean projects, and they were happy with it. I didn't overwhelm them with the uh, all of the use cases of Web3 technology at the beginning, but I focused on the problems that they had, and it was liquidity, it was governance, and it was transparency. Those were the three problems that they were facing as a community. Throughout the years, they've been scammed, and they have like a trauma when it comes to uh, trying to build this kind of projects. So I remember that I focus on that use case, but you have other scenarios where you don't have a community that is lacking liquidity or is lacking governance. You have a community that what they lack is the wisdom, the actual expertise to do what needs to be done. So you can use those to pick and choose the solution and how you want to structure what the offering. That's why I refer that every farm is serving and solving a different purpose because of that. Because we we are handling dynamic scenarios in the real world. Yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine, language and how you approach these conversations is one of the big challenges that I think the refi movement is going to continue to have, especially with the crypto jargon and all of this, these aspects of how we communicate with, farmers and local public officials who may not have, the insights to how blockchains operate, or how DAOs work, or what a DAO is in the first place, but really just talking to them about how to solve the problems that they have right in front of them, because that's what they care about most. And so, yeah, I think it's really fascinating. And in terms of that, like when it comes to the farms that are currently participating or wanting to participate, what is the kind of the onboarding process like for, say somebody who might be interested in participating in this network? And what are some of the kind of challenges that you see up and coming when it comes to onboarding, local communities into this type of network?
That's a great question, and that's why we're building the framework, and that's why we open source the framework. Anyone can fork it, and is right now it's only text, but we have a few components that are going to enable. Are going to massively increase the value, like the business model canvas of the framework, the impact flywheel of the framework. Also, the a financial forecast that you can plug and play. Those three elements are in the final stages, and I feel like that's going to enable people to play with the framework and how we are going to provide sample data. But yeah, going back to your question, the onboarding is for new farms, new pieces of land, new locations. It's simple. Every start with step one of the framework is data collection and diagnosis. And by diagnosis is not only evaluating the soil, it's not only evaluating the location itself, the weather, the natural conditions, but it's also evaluating the community and evaluating like what are the real needs, and what is the community needs and what is that you want as a landowner. In the case that is a single person, but we have projects that the partners are a community of 50 families. So, we have different scenarios, but step one is understanding like what is that we are against to, like what are the problems. Like, let's talk about the if we had like natural disasters in the past, all of those variables you use it in step one, because you with that data is that how you define uh, crop selection. That's how you define step two, because you do crop selections based on the kind of weather, based on how much water you have access to, and many other variables. So that's how the onboarding process goes. It's like in the step one, we are able to get like a picture of what is the we need to what are the decisions we need to make down the line. So yeah, that's how everything starts.
Yeah, and really just kind of evaluating the needs of that particular farmer or farm, I guess what you call a farm operator, in terms of, how to get what they need to, get provide them the value that they need in order to execute and start on their project, or their farm. And so, yeah, one of the biggest question marks for me for all kind of localism and localism efforts has been, the challenges of utilizing blockchain systems on a local level. And I guess my question for you is, in your experience with the Coconut Network, what have been the biggest challenges in utilizing blockchain for both you as a project facilitator, and for the end users who are onboarding into your network, that you think should change or should it be improved on in terms of how we approach building locally?
uh, User experience. Most blockchain apps are not mobile friendly and not very user friendly. I feel like that's the biggest blocker, but we getting better because now we see apps that are introducing gasless experience. Now we have gasless experience when it comes to safe wallet. So we're getting better because now new apps are being built to address specific problems. For example, one of my uh, favorite app in my workflow is Karma Gap, because Karma Gap, I can collect all of the data that I'm collecting in the ground, and I can consolidate the data in a report. And that data is EAS native, and it's going to be pushed into many places. So, you know, it's improving, but implementing blockchain technology is all about the user experience, because you want to introduce this technology to normies, to people that are not Web3 native. So, sometimes something doesn't work in the right way, or is not an iOS or Android native app. But I feel like, but we are improving. TLDR is getting better. Um, I'm I'm personally gaining more confidence into implementing Web3 tooling in the day-to-day operations. Like before, for us, Web3 tooling, Web3 tooling, sorry, it was like mainly for governance, for DAO stuff, for oversight. But now, being able to expand that to the day-to-day operations when it comes to increasing the fidelity of the data, increasing the provenance and the permanence of the data, that's a big win from my point of view.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, the UX experience has always been one of those where I'm just like waiting for it to evolve because yeah, even for a lot of local builders, they may have a really great idea, but you look at the current UX process for a lot of it, and you go, "There's no way I'm bringing this to a group of people who have never utilized this before, and going to expect them to catch on or to keep utilizing it." But yeah, it's really fascinating. Um, and so yeah, I do have high hopes. I like the idea of gasless transactions. I think that's going to be really a big win for a lot of applications. Um, but yeah, so in terms of the Coconut network, what are kind of the goals of this network, and how do you think this is going to evolve into the future?
My like from a personal perspective, what I'm aiming for is to make uh, for the framework to be good enough, and for, let's say, how we implement the framework as Coconut Network is good enough to attract the right people and the right brain. Because I feel like I believe we have a great opportunity here to, like I said, bring the power back to the people. What I mean by that is that imagine that you have this community network, this community governed network, and this network is the backing asset for a token. And this token is able to be traded among people, and they know that because of the fidelity of the data, they don't need to panic sell because of, let's say, a tweet went out, or they don't need to go crazy because they know that they have uh, let's say, a balanced governance system in place. So, long term, I want to see DeFi people understanding that they can back tokens, and they can back basically uh, many unit of value, many unit of accounts can be powered by real world assets that has a positive, sustainable, and market agnostic cash flow. So TLDR, I wanna make Coconut good enough for people to say, oh yeah, we can actually coordinate not only syntropic farms, we can build a new Coca-Cola, but a healthy one owned by the people. Because at the end of the day, YOLO, you only live once. And we have this technology that is supposed to be borderless and supposed to be no ceilings, in the equation. So why are not we trying to create community owned everything? Because right now, for example, in the case of coconuts, the major player in the coconut industry is Coca-Cola. You know, it's crazy, but it is like that because they control the water supply and a bunch of other brands when it comes to wellness, um, and having a better lifestyle. So yeah, long term, I want to make this good enough for communities and anyone to leverage, to fork and modify and apply to different sectors, verticals, and markets. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, and so I guess what do you hope to see like in terms of growth, with this network in the next couple years, and what will you need to happen in order to get it done?
Um, we are based in the Dominican Republic. At least when it comes to my own country, the total addressable market is huge because we're talking about the food, and we're talking about decentralizing the food supply chain. So I would say that there are no ceilings. It's like the scaling is and the growth potential is limitless. Because you have a bunch of people that has land, and you have a real need is that humanity needs to eat. So when you have a syntropic farm, you can tap into more than one market. You can tap into three, four markets at the same time. So yeah, the growth potential, at least in our case as operator, when it comes to the coconut team, we're gonna push. Like we're playing a long game here. You know, for 2025, we want to reach 12 farms under management. But I only see that accelerating over time as we deliver results and as we uh, continue to open source everything we do. We hope to see other operators popping up in other countries. It's open source knowledge. Like, they don't need to pay a fee, they don't need to pay a tax to the network, and they can replicate what we're doing. That's the whole point. It's about empowering communities. This is not about creating a BC gated product. This is about creating a process that you can trust and that you can feel proud to say, oh, my farm, my asset is powered by the Coconut framework. Or this, let's say, unit of account is being secured by the Coconut framework. That's my expectations long term.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I think that, when it comes to local builders especially, it's really hard to convey exactly what you want to build because everybody expects some type of, wanting to have some type of massive financial return associated with it when, the real outcome that you're going for is that empowerment and getting people to operate in a system that is trustworthy, trust minimized, and being able to facilitate outcomes that are real world associated. And I think that's a really difficult thing to achieve when you're conveying these ideas to others. And so, yeah, applaud to you. This is it's really great. And I guess I kind of want to end in the this our conversation interview here with one last question because I do think this is a very important question for a lot of people who are trying to build locally. Is what are your biggest needs right now as kind of a local organizer and this kind of this attempt at building public infrastructure on a local level. What are your biggest needs right now as an organizer?
Yeah, I can summarize that in three forms of capital: is social, financial, and intellectual. We need them in different degrees. Uh, you know, uh, I feel like we can create massive value without having financial capital, but we need financial capital in order to implement the value that we can create without the financial capital, let's say only social or intellectual. Uh, is balance is key. When anyone building in real life projects, uh, I would say that the amount of variables that you need to take in account is huge because it's not as easy as writing code and I don't know, verifying that the code is going to execute in the right way. I feel like that's a low risk operation. But when it comes to real life projects, I would say that, yeah, you need many ways, many forms of capital, starting with intellectual, social, and financial. But also, you need to leverage that capital uh, to focus on minimizing the risks. Because, in the real world, even the weather can bring massive loss to your project. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The amount of capital you can get is so much capital, social capital, that you can leverage in local communities that is almost invaluable to what you're doing. And so, is there any call to action that you have in terms of for the Coconut Network in terms of what people can do to learn more about you, to get involved, maybe start their own farm, all that?
Yeah, give us a follow. We have many great stuff in the pipeline. Like I said, components for the framework to make it more usable for people. We coming with interactive elements, so you're gonna be able to play with sample data. Um, Basically, make it like more, like I said, usable. And we have a few farms in the pipeline too. Like, like give us a follow. Like, if you wanna hang out on a call, we soon are going to start onboarding DAO members to the Coconut DAO. Like we have very exciting updates and stuff happening and releases like the Coconut ecosystem canvas, and this is everything like the pre-work so we can launch the first commercial grade farm, Coconut B1, that is going to be the first farm being funded by the Coconut DAO. Is going to be the first project that we basically build and design to present to the DAO for the DAO to decide if they want to fund it or not. So we can test out our thesis, or I mean, our DAO thesis of uh, community governance and community agency by default. Because in the Coconut DAO, and none of the DAO implementation that we are going to be doing down the line, the core team has the Coconut core team has any power. This is on purpose and by design to send a message, to basically to test out the thesis that we have when it comes to DAO governance and the use case of a DAO in an ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really great. Thank you, Wasabi. And yeah, so I just wanted to update everybody and say I just want to say thank you to Wasabi for joining us today to speak about the Coconut Network and its experience, building locally. I think this is one of those things where we're trying to um, really focus on collecting and aggregating all of the learnings that we have when it comes to building locally. And Wasabi, thank you so much for providing those insights and those ideas and really just kind of explaining your experience that you've had so far and kind of the needs and challenges that are associated with building locally. And so that's something that we're really wanting to continue to highlight here at the TEC and something that we're going to continue doing. We're really excited to see the kind of the emergence of localism starting to take place this year and continuing into the future. Outside of that, thank you so much, Wasabi, for everything. Really appreciate you coming on here and talking about the Coconut Network. if you get a chance to check him out or the Coconut Network DAO, please look at what they're building, get involved, contribute where you can, and let's get localism off the ground here. I think that we're starting to see this kind of reemergence of local focus and utilizing blockchains and creating decentralized solutions for local communities. And really excited about all the work that you're doing, Wasabi. And to everyone else, thank you for coming, and talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. It was great. I had a blast. Thank you so much. It was an honor. So yeah, have a great day, everyone. Thank you for showing up, and let's keep growing. Let's keep building.
Let's grow. All right, Wasabi. Thank you, man. Have a good day. Bye, everybody.